Good evening, good evening, and good evening. It is now exactly 17:58, 59. So don't be surprised, you did not miss anything. We are just getting started, and we wanted to be sure that we are on time for you for 1800 hours. So yes, we have not changed the time slot. Dr. B Talks is still going live at 1800 hours. And of course, you do know that we are trying by all means to make sure that we improve the platform, and we needed to get and connect earlier so that we don't have any glitches. And of course, you do know that we've got an exciting announcement for today, that we are doing simulcast streaming with Sowetan live on their digital platforms. So yes, that's why. But I'm never late, am I? I almost said that's why I'm on time. So I can't give credit to you and say I'm on time because of you. I'm never late.
Nah, that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, so
on time, it's okay. Take the credit.
No. I'm always on time. I'm always on time. So yes, we would be starting in the next couple of seconds, so that at least we stick to the time. So yes, thank you very much for those that have logged in. And yes, and we are proud to be having this simulcast broadcasting with Sowetan Live. We would be just tuning in now in the next few seconds, as we always ask for your time for exactly 1800. This is Dr. B Talks on your weekly platform of Dr. B Talks. This is your host, Dr. Luvuyo Payeni, and welcome to yet another exciting episode. And this month, as you might be aware, we have been linking to the theme of human rights. And of course, that is a theme for South African calendar, obviously linked to the commemoration of the 21st of March. But of course, here at Dr. B Talks, we wanted to align and link it to our health topics. And you would recall that we opened the month with us talking about access to healthcare and what does it mean in terms of human rights and how do we relate that to the human rights. And we went further to then also bring a concept of empowering us as clients who are using the healthcare system, whether private or public, where we discussed a very interesting, exciting topic. We actually have got a couple of topics that are related to the complaints management that we did not cover last week. And we'll still find time to make sure that at least we empower each other, because we wanted to make sure that as a user, you have an understanding. Taps, what we were trying to do as well is that as people use the healthcare system, we wanted to empower them to also know their rights and what is available for them. So we spoke about the complaints management system. So this week we then said, let's turn a leaf a bit. Instead of just focusing on the user and focusing on the access, let's also be mindful that we have got healthcare users and healthcare providers. And of course, both of us, both as a user and a provider, we all have to enjoy human rights at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So we said, let's just see and have a conversation and see how, as healthcare providers, what can we be empowered with that talks to us having to enjoy human rights as anyone else, but importantly, having to be able to enjoy rendering the service, enjoy delivering what we had promised our citizens in terms of quality healthcare. But importantly, what is that thing that will make me feel like, you know what, I am excited to get out of my bed and go to work, as an element of a right or something that ought to be available. I almost said given, but other people will like saying these words of given. It's as if people are demanding, but something that's available in terms of the workspace. So today, that's what we'll be looking at, to say in the theme of human rights, but looking at the healthcare space, but now looking at the healthcare workers. I teased the healthcare workers on our post to say today it's about them. And even on the previous episodes, I've been teasing, we have got viewers that are leading workers. In the main, you would see some of them are leading your DINOSA, which is the Democratic Nursing Association organization. We've even hosted the president of SAMAT, which is the Union for Medical Doctors. So we've had a couple of leaders that are already having a responsibility of leading workers. So we tease them to say today it's about them, and then we hope that they will be able to engage and have as many questions so that we are able to respond to them. But this is just to welcome all of us to our weekly Dr. B Talks. And the topic for today is about human rights versus the healthcare workers. And I've got my guest here who happens to I know a couple of people that know us from way back from Metunza will say, yes, this is a Metunza reunion, but today we're not here about that. I've got my guest who is a friend of mine, but he's doing a lot of work in terms of coaching. He's doing a lot of work in terms of also assisting even organizations, corporate and public, in creating a conducive work environment for employees. But importantly, I happen to have also attended a session where there was a focus in terms of making us as the attendees. In this case, it was all of us from the Department of Health, National Department of Health, where there was a session that was saying, let's reflect, let's look at ourselves whilst we are in the workplace, but let's look at ourselves and see if there are issues that we have that may be happening to influence our work environment from internally or intrinsic. So I brought him here because I felt that with having benefited from that session myself, but understanding the scope of work he does, it will be much relevant. Because remember, I told the B-Talks, we don't only come to just lament or complain or raise issues. We also want a situation where people can be able to benefit and be empowered. So I might not have enough intro that I've shared because I left some so that you can have a sense and an opportunity to introduce yourself to our viewers. But importantly, just to highlight and share, I expressed what I know and what I've been exposed to in terms of your workspace. But please welcome to the platform and thank you for agreeing, my friend. And it's a pleasure to. It's a bit awkward.
It is. But thank you so much for having me. Initially I was like, yo, okay, how do we go and have this conversation? But I'm really excited. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Greetings to everyone who's there. Greetings to fellow colleagues. Greetings to all the health professionals. Greetings to people in leadership positions. Greetings to friends, everyone who decided that they would love to come here and be inspired, be empowered by specifically this conversation that speaks to health workers, your rights. Who am I? Thabiso Mailula, famously known as Coach Mailula or Coach Thabiso, whichever you prefer. Normally people will say Coach Thabiso, which comes from to be so awesome. So that just came from a time in my life where when I introduce myself, especially to white people, they'll be like, hey, hi Thabiso. And I'll be like, no, it's Thabiso. It's Thabiso. And I'll be like, oh, hi Thabiso. But, I realized that sometimes you get labels in life. You get labels in life, and if you try and resist them, they stick with you for a long time. And I decided to make lemonade out of it. So I started calling myself Coach to be so awesome. I made it my daily goal to be so awesome every single day. And that caught on, and people started calling me Coach to be so awesome, Coach to be so awesome. But what do? I'm a coach. I studied psychology and specifically focusing in trauma counseling. Became a trauma counselor, worked in the mental health space, worked with people with mental health problems, helping them to be reintegrated back into society. We did a lot of work with corporates, with your SABCs, employers, to help people to be able to firstly understand mental health problems, but also to understand how to cope with them. Because a lot of us in life tend to think that mental health problems only affect people who get admitted at your Vescopies, your state hospitals or psychiatric hospitals, not realizing that there are symptoms that we experience that often lead us to that point. So firstly is to create awareness, make people become aware of the different symptoms that persist, how they manifest in you, but also to know when you do start experiencing those symptoms, what can you do? We also do team buildings to help people really improve how they relate with one another, because in the definition of mental health, one of the key things that we look at is how you build relationships, how you connect with other people. And that's one of the things that start falling off the moment you start having mental health problems. You start disconnecting, you start isolating yourself, but to help people really connect in the space that we spend most of our time. We spend most of our time in the workplace, but we tend to think that we need to get mental health or get experiences that make us feel better outside of work.
You know, you're reminding me. Just during this week, I had a session with my team, and one of the moments I was trying to highlight there was the value in us creating a culture in the workspace.
Absolutely.
And my emphasis was on saying we should have a value-based culture that the 22 of us as a cluster can subscribe to. And what you mentioned earlier on about mental health versus the workspace, it's exactly what I was even raising with them to say, my vision for the team is that we are spending a lot of time at work.
Absolutely.
And it's our responsibility to make sure that the work environment is such that it does not have, you might have your own stressors and have issues, but our efforts should be such that we don't create an addition to your stress as a work environment.
Yeah.
And I also was reminding them that most often than not, you will find that people now end up bottling these things up and would look at the soft targets. And hence you would see people now projecting even into partners, into children, because they've got this stress from work, but they don't know where to take it out. So I'm happy that you've already touched this issue of saying the value on the conducive working environment. And I think that's what today is all about. And for those who've just joined, thank you very much for joining. Welcome to the Beat Talks. And please enjoy the session today, because we are also proud that it's our first simulcast broadcasting with Sowetan Live. So we are very proud of this moment. And we are discussing, as part of the theme of human rights, health worker rights, or how to make a conducive environment, as you might have heard. So please, all of us that on the platform, please feel free to join. Leave your comments on the comment section. And yes, like we said earlier on, this is about you, especially health workers. Please take this as an opportunity for you to engage, and we would like to make the session all about responding to your engagements as well. So before we go far, conducive work environment. This might sound a bit political in terms of putting it. Is it a right? Is it an expectation? Is it an offer from the employer side? If you, I'm listening today to your conversation and I'm following Dr. B Talks, and I hear you talking about conducive work environment, would you say I must wake up tomorrow and say, hey, Mphathi, before we start anything, there is that thing of conducive environment. What are we doing about it? I've got my rights, or what? How would you advise, or how would you prefer our viewers and anyone else who's going to have access to this platform to take because for us, we are agreeing that it is important to have conducive environment in the workspace. But now we also don't want people to go to their employers and be seen to be rough, to be confrontational and misinterpret us. So how would you advise, or how would you prefer our viewers look into this issue of a conducive work environment? Moreover, in terms of from tomorrow, because here at Dr. B Talks, our aim is that let's empower people. From listening to the show today, let there be something positive that someone can do tomorrow and say, from listening through the talk, this is what I want to improve on.
Beautiful. I firstly wanted to just maybe quickly touch on something. People might be thinking, okay, you studied psychology, why do you call yourself a coach, and so forth. So one thing I did is I studied NLP, which is the study of modeling excellence. And really, this gives you strategies that helps people be able to remove obstacles that prevent them from achieving what they want to achieve. And these obstacles could be thought patterns. These obstacles could be feelings. These obstacles could be behaviors that are unresourceful. And I think what you are touching on right now is beautiful in the sense that we are giving advice that people can implement immediately in their workplace. And I mean, firstly, I would start off by firstly saying, what is your right? I think we need to firstly understand the right. I mean, we've got the right to a safe working environment, the right to conducive working hours and so forth. But I think speaking to mental health specifically, I wanted to just touch on the right to reasonable accommodation.
Okay.
And I think that is so important, because a lot of the time we think reasonable accommodation is just a way of organizations lowering their standards. And it's not. It's simply organizations making adjustments in the working environment in order for those standards to be met. So this is basically the employer making fair and practical adjustments to be able to reasonably accommodate employees to be able to perform at their peak. So for you to be able to get the results that you get, you need to get reasonable accommodation. This is for people with health problems, people with mental health problems, and people with personal challenges.
I like this point because now it's reminding us that those of us who are employers given responsibility to lead, I see quite a number in the platform. I saw there is also Kayambeu, who is the CEO of UNEC Provincial Hospital, is on the platform. I saw Huliko Homela, whom we come away back with from Medunza.
Yes.
He's also in the platform, and I
Nice.
know he's leading Nehau in Limpopo. So now we want to talk to those of us who know that irrespective of your level, but you have a responsibility of having to supervise someone, let me call it that. There are people that look up to you to say, you are the one they must talk to first to create this conducive environment. So the message now that we want to start with is, as an employer, you have got standards and expectations, and you have promised people a service. And the first lesson now is to say, it is equally your responsibility to make sure that the environment is such that those standards can be met.
Absolutely.
That promise in terms of service that you had offered people can be achieved. And now when it comes to your employees, the message that is coming through is, as an employer, you equally have got a responsibility to ask yourself, how do I meet them or meet their expectations as employees so that they can meet my expectations as an employer?
Absolutely.
So we need to find each other now in this middle, which is where you're saying sometimes it goes out as if we're saying people must adjust, people must be flexible and all those things. Whereas in actual fact, it's a question of saying, let's meet each other halfway.
Absolutely.
Let's have this contract. Let's have this arrangement. So yes, we asked earlier on that should you go tomorrow and say it's your right or what? So now we are correcting. We are saying it's a conversation that is meeting both of you in between to say, as an employer, I'm coming with these expectations and these promises that I've made to my clients. As an employee, you are coming because you want to, one, your commitment is to help the employer achieve, but two, now you're saying, wait, let's now see how and where am I going to achieve these things.
And I think that the first point of departure with this is firstly to find out, what does the policy say?
Okay.
You know, in some trainings, to ask as an employee to find out, you know, what does the policy say in terms of reasonable accommodation? Because then once you open that dialogue, you create awareness. Sometimes employers are unable to implement these rights or to meet you halfway because they don't even know. These are policies that are there, they are beautiful on file, but simply in terms of implementation, they don't even know. And if they knew, maybe they might, and opening the conversation to say, what does the policy say in terms of reasonable accommodation? What does the policy say in terms of creating a psychologically safe environment? You know, we find it, we talk about it, everyone talks about it as if it's a norm to experience bullying in the workplace, to experience toxicity in the workplace. Whereas to a point where if you actually speak up about having a mental health problem or struggling in some way or needing some sort of accommodation, you are considered to be weak. You may experience bullying, you may experience, you might be sidelined. And, you know, so those are things that we need to start being comfortable. And I think it starts with each and every one of us. You know, as I was thinking about this, I think the reason that we are having such a high number of mental health problems in the environment is that we've actually normalized struggling. We've normalized coping. Almost as if coping is the way that it's a norm for us to cope.
So which also makes me as an employer even ignore, if not forget, or overlook the responsibility that I have to create the environment that is such that people are, like you say, psychologically safe, physically safe, emotionally safe, because now I've created a culture and an environment that people must just cope.
And they must fear speaking up. And I think, you know, the reason I'm saying cope, maybe let me touch on in the sense of there's a mental health spectrum that I think we need to kind of be aware of. And the first level is the level of thriving. When you're thriving, that's where you actually come to work motivated, you come to work, you know, you enjoy your work, you are purpose driven, you address, you face problems in a calm manner, and you still go home after your work feeling energized, you're able to connect with your loved ones and still make time for your family, you know. Whereas the level that we've glorified and it's common is coping. You know, where when you start coping is you're managing challenges. Life is tough, you're experiencing stress, but ultimately you're still able to deliver results. The next level is the level of struggling. Now, when you are struggling, that's where now you start experiencing a bit of self-doubt, you start feeling, you start questioning yourself, you start feeling anxious before coming to work. You know, work is a bit of a challenge, you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and you start missing certain deadlines, you know. Then the next level is where you start experiencing burnout.
And that's where sometimes we make the situation worse, for a lack of a better word, that when they are struggling now, the employees, that's when we come hard and say, you're not performing, you're not doing A, you're not doing B.
We throw the law on you, we throw consequences, we start implementing. As a manager, I want to now manage you instead of looking at how can I support you. I notice that you're struggling. How can I support you? Are you okay? Are you coping?
Yes, thank you very much. I see that Kayambe is also commenting that through bullying, a gang has become a norm. I see Thabiso is also confirming that, we have normalized coping. It's actually something that they are also observing in the workspace. So that's what we're here to talk about at Dr. B Talks. Let's have those experiences from yourselves. Let's have this engagement. But importantly, ours is to empower you so that tomorrow, when you go to work, you are able to face things differently and say that there's a thing or two that you might have picked up from the Dr. B Talks. And welcome once more those who've just joined here at Dr. B Talks. We are hosting Thabiso Mailula, and it's our first simulcast broadcasting with Sowetan Live. So please feel free to continue dropping your comments on our comment section, and please continue to also invite as many people to come and follow and join us as we continue to empower through Dr. B Talks. And just before I come back to you, Tabs, I see Nolwa Khalasi is also commenting that we normalize coping. It's very sad truth. What are the consequences? And I think you've already touched on the consequence that we make people live in this level of coping, whereas we should be pushing them to thriving. So that should there be elements that make you fall to a lower level, then you fall back to coping. But now, because we have pushed people to settle at coping, the consequence, as Nolwa is asking, then means that you end up falling where? You fall down to where now you are really struggling, and worse off in the other level of making sure that people just now are flat.
Then you get burnt out.
Yes. And I think Rochelle is also acknowledging that it's an important conversation that we need to offer of support is really crucial. And I see Tigizwa is also commenting that she thinks in the public sector reasonable accommodation is still a challenge. And Shez is also commenting that I like how you say it. It's beautiful in the files, but implementation is the problem that we are facing. And when you spoke about the files, now you reminded me that Namdi employer, and then I was like, oh, this dude is now talking about me, not me, but the employers. So it's true, and the sad thing, Tabs, is that like you're saying, these things are there in the files, and you, I think you even touched it seriously. You hit the nail there on the when you said, even the people that are supposed to implement sometimes don't even know.
They don't know.
And you'll find that whether you would argue that it's ignorance or it's deliberate, but you'll find that someone was employed to be a manager. They never even had an induction. They were never even taken through those files. They are just told that you are managed. So sometimes this issue that we're talking about of rights and employees, we also cover, or we are also concerned and mindful that there are also employees that are in senior or supervisor or managerial positions that also belong to this category we're talking about, of people whose environment has not been made conducive for them.
Absolutely.
And now we would hear that term that is usually used of throwing them in the deep end, that go and swim without us supporting and taking them through. So all of us as employees, we then end up having to suffer from this, especially if it has become what you refer to a norm. of the organization, of the workspace. So that's what is happening here. I want us to also move towards, as you were trying, I think you were already starting to step into that, to say, now, in terms of creating this environment that is an enabler and conducive, you were just empowered us to understand even the different categories. And for all those of us who happen to supervise any employee, irrespective of the level, please take note of those levels, please pay attention to them, and maybe please observe your employees. And like we said earlier on, the starting point is just to be there to support, to say that even the one that is at coping level, you can go back and say, you know, I see you striving and thriving into this, so that you move them out of the coping level and then they can expand. So that's what we would like to advise. Yes.
You know, I always say we need to start having managers that are coaching managers.
Okay.
Managers who are able to take their employees from where they are to where they'd like to be. Because then you start looking at your employees as the potential that they could reach. That's when you are able to start having conversations with, I actually see you performing at this level. Instead of managing and looking to find the issues that they have. It's almost like you are that teacher who's just looking for an opportunity to just whip their learners. So see how you can support their your employees. How can I take you from where you are to? So and in that, it brings the opportunity to say, I cannot manage someone who I cannot see performing beyond the level that they are performing at. And that means that I need to start looking at the opportunities, the potential that this person has. I start showing up in a different way. But I also think there's also this culture, and that's your responsibility as a team leader, as a manager, this culture of looking at people who are thriving, people as overachievers. You know, I was actually attending this training session just during the week, you know, and we're given an activity to actually go and collect as many things as possible, as many signatures around the room. This lady looked at me and she said, "Oh, you're an overachiever." And almost as if being an overachiever is a bad thing. You know, we have this in the corporate, that the moment somebody is thriving, you want to pull them down. So, and we only see it when a manager does it, because they are now intimidated by somebody else.
Yeah.
But we don't see it when us at the same level start pulling other people down by saying, "Hey, well, you know what you overachieve."
Actually, I was going to say, even the word or the labeling of overachieving, you would find that the way we are so content with the coping level, when even someone is doing what they ought to have done as an expectation or as a level, you mentioned earlier on, you said an organization would have standards where they want to achieve and perform. So you'll find that even someone who is now doing the standards, just because the organization has been used to a culture of coping, it's like now they come to you and say you are overachieving, and you're like, but is that not what we're supposed to be doing? What is it that is over on what I'm doing? So yes, let's empower those of us who have got employees that report to us. Let's change our tone. I know some of you are already doing it, and big ups to yourselves, and maybe this will also empower you in terms of doing better in what you're doing already. I see Sis B Zizimkwena is saying, "Evening Doc, this is very crucial topic you touched this evening. Really, the working environment is inconducive and unbearable. No support from management at all." Today I saw a poster on Facebook, and I think I sent to my creative director to have a look at. This poster is from, I know the lady, and I hope also happen to know that she is a leader in Eastern Cape Health. She's leading the nursing organization there. And the saddest thing about it is when she starts this post today, she starts by saying that it's a pity that she is now leading. And I think that the sentiment there was saying, I'm being held back to how I would have ordinarily responded to this situation because I'm in leadership. And she explains that this is so bad and pathetic that she is seeing, and I think it will talk to what you spoke about of bullying in the workplace, because she expressed a situation where she made an assessment that managers are literally pulling down young nursing professionals in terms of how the workspace has become so toxic. And what I liked though with it is that she was not speaking for herself, because it comes to what you said earlier on, that the work environment has been such that it suppresses and does not create room or opportunities for anyone to speak out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why I immediately decided to screenshot and keep it in our archives, because I felt it would be relevant for the session today. Because she is not speaking for herself. And she's clear that she can speak up for herself. But now you can imagine that if this is even observed or even done in front of a employer rep or employee rep or a leader of the employees, how much more in the other corners when they know that these people are voiceless, these people can't talk for themselves. So it's bad that indeed this is it's a norm, and it's something that we need to speak about it, and maybe to a certain extent to ask ourselves as to is the files really the answer? Because if you talk to any employer, they'll tell you, no, we've got files on how to create a conducive environment. We've got a program. But is that really what should be happening? And please, would also equally welcome your inputs on your comments on this matter, and any other questions that you may have. We would really appreciate. This is Dr. B Talks, and we are also doing our first simulcast broadcasting with Sowetan Live, and thank you very much for joining, to the viewers that have logged on already. And so now, in terms of there is also this concept or this understanding. I hope I usually refer to them as my friends. My friends in labor won't say I'm lashing at them. There is usually this misconception of labor reps or unions being only seen as people that will probably look at salary, will look at someone dismissed, will look at disciplinary representation, and I do want to acknowledge that in actual fact, we do know that their scope goes beyond that. They should be fighting for exactly what you're talking about in terms of conducive working environment. They should be fighting for empowerment programs in terms of development in the workplace, and obviously try and look for a more supportive environment. And would you say in your exposure, we have done enough in terms of empowering the actual leaders? Because we could be looking and maybe in other circles labeling or judging them, for a lack of a better word, that sometimes you will say, nah, these ones are in the employer's pocket. That's why this coalition is not changing. They are just there for themselves. But I think let's look at it differently. Do we think we have empowered them enough? Do we think there is enough support for them to actually be able to stand up for these things, or to see these things through in terms of changing the workspace?
Look, I think, to safely answer the question, I don't think we have done enough. A lot of the time we go into environments to work specifically. When we work in organizations, we start off with managers. Start off working with managers. Why? Because the moment that you have issues within yourself, that is when you will be toxic to other people. That is when you will be intimidated by other people, where you now start having the need to have a pull her down or pull him down syndrome. Why? Because you have limiting beliefs within yourself, and you're starting to have dialogues within yourself that feels like you're not good enough. I always say, and I mean, I might be controversial in saying this, and I feel like a lot of African people who get into leadership positions struggle, because they get into leadership positions because they have been thriving, and that's how they've been used to working independently to thrive on their own, and that's how they got to that position. But the challenge they have when they get there is they don't know how to delegate. They don't know how to rely on other people to support them, and that's why I always say, delegation is also seen as, you know, people that are
Taking away your power.
lazy, you're taking away your power, but it's also the power to empower other people. To get other people to be able to get to your level. But I also say we need to help people to work on, firstly, leaders to work on their mindset. Work on your mindset so that you are able to think in ways that help you feel resourceful, help you behave in ways that are resourceful. I always say that your thoughts influence how you feel. How you feel influences how you behave. How you behave is how you treat other people. How are you treating other people? Your thoughts influence how you communicate. That's your behavior, how you communicate with other people. So if you don't work on this, you will constantly be intimidated by anyone who starts looking like a threat to you. Because your nervous system now immediately goes into protecting yourself. And that's why you have managers who are performing in the way that they're performing. Not because they want to sabotage other people. It's just that self-protection mechanism.
And it's gonna sound as if we just tapping on one thing of the culture and the environment of coping as a normal, because as you were explaining that, you would find other people, because of their own performance, ultimately get to graduate to leadership position. And the culture, the environment still hasn't changed. It's that of coping. Hence, like you said, that now it becomes even difficult. They are so used to thriving on their own. They had managed personally or otherwise to elevate themselves from this culture of coping. And now they are in the senior position. And when they look back, they like, it's a coping statement or it's a stalemate. And they are not used to that. So delegating, it's something else. Now they still want to continue working on their own. And that's why we look up to them and think that this one, who does it think he is? And then that's when he start revolting to say, Retomobonsa, actually. Exactly. And now that he's up there, he used to be with us. And that's how people talk. Like, he used to be one of us, and now all of a sudden, he wants us to run around. He's seeing us as if we can jump whenever he says, let's jump. So there is also that. I'm seeing, and I would like us to just touch on a couple of comments that have come through. I see Lerato is indicating that employee coaching is vital but very rare. And I think it's good that at least we are doing that awareness now through this conversation. Tikizwa is indicating that again, employee wellness program is perceived as a program that assists employees to show the employees the gate, not as an enabler to create a better, healthy space for all. I doubt if there are even self-referrals to say this is how we want to empower people. Mandisa is also saying that it's very sad that coping is really normalized. I see now, as I had mentioned, that I had intentionally teased some of the leadership of the workers within the health sector. Sivuyele Mange is one of the leaders of the Eastern Cape Democratic Nurses Organization, DINOSA. He is saying, firstly, there is a saying that a happy worker is a productive worker. This needs a support system starting from management to colleagues and subordinates. That also talks to job satisfaction, which is not about money at times, but a positive practice environment. Let's repeat that one. Please allow us to repeat that one. Job satisfaction is not about money at times, but a positive practice environment. At times, this unconducive environment is deliberate because employers want to maximize profit in the private sector and maximize service in the public sector by exploiting workers. In some instances, in some instances, when managers are not capacitated enough, which is what we just spoke about, the level of management and their capacity, they resort in creating toxic environments, so they are not held accountable for their incapacity. Otherwise, if a positive practice environment is created, the end product is a happy worker who is productive. Masa is also joining to say, as an employee, we soldier on, but the management needs to support to be productive to the rest of the staff. Thank you very much for the inputs and your contributions, and we really appreciate and the engagements that are coming through. And like we said earlier on, this is mainly about even our viewers, because we did say today it's about them, and we appreciate that they are making these comments. But also, interestingly, is that especially the narrative that has just come through now talks to exactly what you were saying. That Equally so, if employees are not happy, the environment is toxic, you can't expect productivity.
You're not going to have it. You know, maybe just a step back in terms of what you just mentioned a little bit earlier in terms of toxicity by managers to employees and so forth, and why there's this culture of remaining silent. You know, when we firstly feel that we're not treated fairly, when we feel that the environment is not conducive for us to be productive, when we see other people being discriminated against, why there's this culture. And I always say, I mean, in the work that we do is that we also do anti-bullying workshops and so forth. And there are three partners where there's bullying. You know, there are three
Enablers of such a behavior.
There's a bully, there's a victim, and there's observer. The bully can only gain power when the observers keep quiet, or when the observers cheer on what the bully does. They perpetuate that by either remaining silent or either actually saying, oh no, this. And observers need to start speaking up. We need to start having more courageous observers. Whether you're an observer as an employee or as a leader, speak up, because a lot of the time there's somebody a lot higher who feels that they have the right to actually do this. And the moment you keep quiet, you get up to that level, and if you feel that you need to change, people are gonna, your peers are gonna actually criticize you.
So don't be comfortable with what's not happening to you.
Exactly.
And just allow that you observed it, you watched it, you even start talking about it.
We need to learn to speak up, because then you find ourselves, when it does happen to us, because of the culture that we've created, there's
going to be another observer that's observing when it's happening to you and do nothing. Absolutely. Because we've created that culture of just observing.
True. And speaking to this, to saying, how then do we support? I mean, there's this narrative that's going around that, nurses are not productive in their spaces because they don't like their work, because this person just got a bursary or whatever. But I think, and they're not passionate about helping people and so forth. I think we maybe need to take a step back to look at their working environment. The working environment itself is not conducive. The hours are not conducive. You know, a lot of the time you have people who are passionate about their work, who go the extra mile. However, there's no leadership, there's no employer who comes and shows acknowledgement for them thriving, for them performing well. You have a lot of nurses, and I'll say nurses because there's this narrative that's thrown out there, there's a stigma that's thrown out there that they're just rude, irritable, and so forth. And that is a consequence of burnout, a consequence of a lack of support, a lack of acknowledgement for the work that they do, but also a lack of acknowledgement for the stress and the trauma that they deal with. You know, I always say trauma occurs when too much, too fast, and too much, too much, too fast, too soon happens to you in a way that your body and mind cannot cope with. And nurses experience that, or they get to a point where they're experiencing consistent situations where they feel like, okay, I can see I want to do this, but the resources that I have do not enable me to be able to actually do this. I constantly feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. I wish I could. That is trauma, because now you feel like I'm in this situation where I feel helpless. It only starts becoming a problem. People now start blaming you when you are at that level where you are feeling burned out, because now you're irritable. You don't care about what you're doing because you're feeling burned out. You don't even want to come to work anymore because you're feeling burned out. And then the moment it becomes a crisis, you start having mental health problems. Then we say, this one is weak. This one can't cope.
Or we start saying there's a pattern that we're observing. This one doesn't want to come to work on Mondays. We forget that there's been a lot that was happening in front of us, which was an indication that the environment is not as conducive and it's not assisting.
Because we are chasing productivity. That's all. We're chasing productivity. We're chasing how many heads, how many people can we treat.
Yeah, this is so sad, but equally so exciting for me, because here at Dr. B, we are here to empower, and indeed, maybe this line was just an expression that we also don't do any red taping, because that one was hitting hard at home. At work, I'm responsible for the health workforce, and yes, it's so sad. It's so sad. You know, without necessarily getting too much into the workspace that I do, there is what we call a human resource for health strategy. And the strategy has got goal number 5, which it talks to what we're talking about today. It's employee management. It's got to do with conducive work environment. And there's a lot. It goes back to this thing of the books, the files that are there. There are, if you would read that and you have never been exposed to any health worker in the country, you'll be like, I want to go and work in that country. If there is a strategy that says, let's prioritize, let's take care of the employees. So indeed, we know what needs to be done. And I think that's maybe a declaration from my side, because those things are there, they are written, and we just need to up our game in terms of trying to be better, and maybe, I don't want to say reasonable, but also caring. I think that will summarize everything. Caring employers. Yeah. Because if we care, we would strive to make an extra effort, irrespective of how small it may look, but because we are pushed by caring. I know we don't use the same pace of going to church, me and you, but you know, today they spoke about the message. Today's message, and when I was listening and sitting there in church, I'm like, I know I'm gonna use this, but I'm gonna try not to use it, because the message was saying power is carried by humility and grace, and they even added to say with wisdom. And I think when we reflect on what is happening, especially from the management point of view, from the employer point of view, we could be missing that we probably are also, and I'm not saying we must get sympathy now as managers and as employers, but it could happen that we are already in a space where we are also on a touch and go, and we have missed the issues of humility. We have missed the issues of asking myself the wisdom, but am I doing the right thing? Is this what I would like to be done to me? Am I doing right to the other person? You think just those simple 3 questions as you do our daily job and all that. So I think we could also be having that as a gap in terms of this whole thing, that not necessarily wanting to label each other as who is a victim, who is not. But when I was seated there in church, I was listening, and I'm like, maybe that's something that's really missing. If people want to summarize it differently, they would say, indeed, akusekho ubuntu, in terms of us when we come to work. We just want to treat people as hierarchy. We want to treat people as labels. If you're just a cleaner, you're a cleaner. You can't be asking me about conducive working environment. You can't be asking me about gloves. You can't be asking me about employee wellness program. You can't be asking me about flexible hours. Yours is just a cleaner, be a cleaner, and that's it. So I think there is that. I see here, okay. And also to our viewers, let's just remind each other, we are now at 18:47, which means we are about 15 minutes towards the end of the show. Time flies, we still enjoy it. We would love to go beyond. But we always say we respect yourselves, and we appreciate that you make time. And we know some of you have now recurring alarms to say between 6 and 7, there is nothing else you are doing but to listen to Dr. B Talks, and we would really appreciate that. So we will try by all means to always stick to time. So please make sure that you send as many comments and inputs that you would like us to touch before we end the show, as we are left now with exactly 15 minutes. I see here that there is a comment. You'll remind me if I've read this one from Mandis. Yes, I think we've read this one about the capacity of being unhappy at work. But Thabiso is also adding to say, or maybe observers, I think it was on the issue of the bullying trio. Maybe observers are quiet because they fear victimization and decide to focus on their chairs. Freedom of speech was long violated. Shares is also adding that, this topic is closer to my home. It said how team buildings and awards recognitions only end on the management level, yet those on the ground seem to be forgotten. How will that encourage employees after after all the hours they've put in, lack of acknowledgement. Guys, you're not supposed to make us feel sad, but we're here for you. We're here for you as Dr. B talks. But these are sad realities, and these are sad realities because this is an expression of not just theory, not just hearsay, a lived experience, and it's so unfortunate that we have created that impression that these award ceremonies, these recognitions, indeed are deserved by certain levels and certain few. When in actual fact, especially if you look at in general, each and every employee in an organization is there for a reason and is here there to contribute towards the overall output. If you look at the healthcare space, I'm always a bit vocal in my workspace with my team and my supervisors sometimes, that if you look at healthcare and what you want to achieve, when you come into a facility, starting from the gate, all the individual employees you meet play a role in the outcome of what you're gonna be getting. So there is no part where we would then say, in actual fact, the main person here is the CEO, whereas the journey of the services that we want to render equally starts from when you come into the entry of the service itself. And it's always embarrassing indeed when you find management and senior officials enjoying to get these awards. But where it frustrates more is that sometimes you'll hear them always saying bad things about the employees. No, I'm having a team that's not performing and whatever. But just last night, you were excited that you got some recognition. So there is no balance there. You say your team is pulling you down and all that, but you are happy to go and stand there and say, I'm receiving. Why not say, no, this one, if you think I've performed, I think it's not me alone, it's my team. Let's so I think the realities that are being shared here, indeed they happen to sort of depress, but weigh us down, and we feel you, we understand, and we appreciate that you also would share with us, and our understanding is that whenever we have these engagements and we get these inputs from yourselves, it's not only about you, and that's what we want to change and want to do differently with Pioneer Talks. And what's your take, Chaps?
Yeah, I mean, just touching on this, for me, what comes up is going back to also what you shared earlier, in the sense that people don't care how much you know, until they know how much you care.
Eish.
And I think as managers, we need to show people that we lead, that we care. And it goes back to exactly what you're saying, in saying, guys, yes, I received this. However, I know I wouldn't have done it without my team. You're showing those people that I care about you. And I care so much that I don't want to take the shine alone. I can only get this as a result of you. And I think that's where you're finding even those employees who are thriving getting discouraged when they're under a manager who's constantly just taking the shine, because they don't get that acknowledgement, and I mean, when we work with employees, now we say, as an employee, you need to get into the habit of acknowledging yourself, because sometimes waiting for that acknowledgement from your employer, you might never get it, and you end up getting discouraged. You end up getting burnt out because you're working so hard, and it feels like you're not going anywhere because you're not getting the acknowledgement that you are seeking from the people that manage you. So get into the habit of rewarding yourself, celebrating yourself, acknowledging your achievements. And I mean, we get into the end, but I think one thing that a lot of the time is being preached is people get to a point where they get burnt out they need to have resilience. You know, I get called in to go and provide training on resilience. And I normally start off by saying there's no such thing as resilience. You know, and people are like, okay, you're here to come and train on resilience. Why are you saying that? Because resilience, in essence, is going back to yourself so that you can be in the moment. We've been taught that it's fighting, pushing through challenges. But the moment you're able to get back to yourself and be in the moment and not worry about what could potentially go wrong in the future and not worry about what went wrong in the past, you are able to be present. But also, we want people to be resilient without giving them something to look forward to in the future. How do I get you to be hopeful? How do I get you to be because resilience comes from having the will to fight through, because I'm going to get something that will benefit me. What is it that we are giving our employees so that they can have something to look forward to?
You know, now you're gonna make me fight with my team, especially my creative director, that one, we are told that we need more time on this topic. Shez, we see your comment. And two, you're talking now in terms of having the ability or making sure that you do your own self-recognition. And as you were explaining, you touched on, and I almost tapped you to say, just hold on. I'm going to ask my creative director if we can do this. Next month, it's April, and our theme that we wanted to work around is caring for self. And as you were starting, and now I'm thinking, well, and I need to go and pitch now, and for us to adjust the schedule, because that's what we wanted to touch on as well in terms of caring for self. And I'm deliberately avoiding to say self-care and using caring for self, because we want to elevate it to a level where our viewers will understand that it starts with you putting in effort, as in caring for self. So let's hold it there. I still have to go to an executive meeting with my director and see.
Can I throw this in? Can I really throw this in?
And see how we're gonna do this now. Yeah.
Look, this is something that I believe causes a lot of the burnout in people, that especially in the healthcare profession. Because people who get into the healthcare profession get into it because they care about others.
Okay.
And they care about others, and they give off of themselves. They give off themselves to such an extent that they neglect themselves. And the moment there's nothing in return,
you are emptying yourself.
You empty yourself, and guess what? You can't pour out of an empty cup. But the moment you get to a point where you are serving, and if there's nothing that you are getting in return, you start having these feelings of resentment to the work that you do, resentment to the people that you are serving, resentment to the people that you are working for. Remember, it's the clients, my employers, resentment to even the colleagues, because I feel like I'm just giving and giving and not getting anything in return. It is so important. Part of the work that I do is to help people find that balance, that there's nothing wrong in giving, but you need to also give yourself, take care of yourself. And that is so important.
Yes, as you're going to prepare your one-liner in terms of closing remarks, it is now exactly 18:57, and we just want to always appreciate that you have been with us, and also appreciating that today we were doing our first simulcast broadcasting with Sowetan Live as Dr. B Talks, and thank you very much for making time to be part of the show. As we are concluding, I see that there is a comment from Untate Peter Yona. This is one of our regular viewers that happens to carry a cap of being a community person. I know he's also having a responsibility in church, and I know him to be very active in terms of community work in the towns and areas of Sarabatman in towards your Kokama municipality. And he says here, the good relationship between an employer and an employee is paramount and good for communities. I think that's why I started with this background of where I know him from, and because this is not just about the two parties. there is someone who is going to be expected to receive the service. So he's emphasizing that if we could find each other and we could make sure that there is this relationship between an employer and an employee, they would benefit and they would feel it. And I see Nolbabalo is also sharing a best practice that is happening, that in their district they recognize all levels of employees from the lowest category to the general assistance, and the feedback from the staff is amazing. We recently hosted a very successful event. My input is we need to advocate for such events to be part of the wellness programs. So we really appreciate that. And of course, we do know that when we raise issues, it might not mean all of us are in that particular corner, but equally so, the reason we bring these items here is that they must not be pushed under the carpet. And we appreciate that we are also being able to learn from each other. And you should have added there that you already have now speakers for the section next year. So just go and talk to your management that we've got tabs here who can come through and grace and be part of that session. And yes, before I forget, colleagues, as you know that Dr. B Talks is coming here to empower, and we have created this platform so that everyone can benefit. But importantly, we also would like to also share that obviously sometimes we do not have enough time, and sometimes we may raise issues that may talk to you personally or to your organization. And please feel free to contact any of our guests where you would like to have their services. And I think as you may see on our comment section, we have added details of Thabiso and how you can be able to get hold of him in terms of the services that he renders. So we really do appreciate that our viewers that have tuned in both on Sowetan Live as well as Dr. B Talks have been tuned in with us. And now I'll just give Tabs to just give a closing statement before we close. It is exactly 1900 hours, and once more apologies that we are stepping over, but we would now be wrapping up. And we do encourage that please continue to follow the page, Sowetan Live as well as Dr. B Talks, and also encourage as many people to follow the page as we had been sharing and journeying with yourselves as our family at Dr. B. We also want to improve the platform so that we can deliver more to you. Taps, I know you still, yeah, but
so I'll say two things. I think to the employee, just a reminder that your job is to care for the service users that we work with, not to carry them.
Kaipindi, it is to care
and not carry them. Because the moment we carry them, we end up taking it home when we're unable to give what we're supposed to do. And to the employers, remember to care for the people that you want to care for others in order for them to be able to perform at their peak. Remember to support your people, provide conducive environments in order for them to perform at their peak. That's it from me. For those of you who maybe might want to interact with me, learn more about the services that I offer. I mean, I offer breakthrough and achievement coaching services for anyone who feels like they are stuck, they are struggling, they are coping, but they believe that they can do more. You can find me. I think the best platform for you to look for me is on LinkedIn, Thabiso Mailula, simple as that. Or you could look at our website, www.subconsciousfrequency.academy.
We will definitely just also help and text that in the comment section so that those that might would like to join later and follow your work and probably access your services will be able to do that. And thank you very much. And it has been a great first time. We've never had to talk and be so professional. After all this time. So thank you very much, and I thank you very much for honoring the invite, but importantly for impacting and empowering our viewers, both on Sowetan Live as well as Dr. B page. So we have come to the end of our session today, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has made time. It is now exactly 19:03, and we really do appreciate that you continue to block your hour on Sunday from 8 1800 hours to 1900 hours to be part of these conversations, and you continue to inspire us and motivate us to do more because of your support. And don't forget once more to invite as many people to follow, but continue to also share and the link on how to follow our page, and as well as these conversations as they remain available on our Facebook platform, as well as on our YouTube channel that we would be now keeping the conversations on. But importantly, let's also appreciate that the platform has now been enhanced by our partnership with Sowetan Live, and also continue to follow. We do have column every second Thursday, where we are writing on Sowetan, and the column is called Ask Dr. Luvio Payeni, and please feel free to always follow on their digital platform. We've already issued 2 that are available on their digital platform, but as well as available on print media. And so thank you very much, and this is now the end of the day, and we would then join next week, same time, same place. And it has been a pleasure, and I think we have managed to cover most of the comments, but continue to post any comments on the comment section and we'll be able to get back to you. Thank you very much. We would meet next week as we are starting a new month, and as I've now already shared with you, we are going to be looking at caring for self for the month of April. And have a lovely week. Thank you very much.